In this video, I'm going to show you how to buy a farm or a homestead, even if you have a high debt to income ratio or horrible credit. This is not a no money down option. You will need some cash. What I'm about to teach you is owner financing, and I guarantee that nobody has ever taught it to you like this. In 2018, I was about to lose my house to foreclosure. I got a letter from the lender June of 2018 saying that they were going to foreclose on my property and that the auction date was scheduled for July the 10th. Now, that's an important date. Hold on to it. It's also the day after my birthday. Now, at the time, I had a pit bull named Hurricane. I was also a divorced single mom with 4 boys. Add to that the fact that I'm self-employed with spotty income and horrible credit. Renting was not an option for me. I was going to have to put my property on the market, sell it in 30 days, and find some way to buy us another home. Back in the early 2000s, I saw Carlton Sheets, God rest his soul, on TV and ordered his real estate course. That was my first real introduction to creative real estate, way before I got my real estate license. Real estate school doesn't teach owner financing. It's not a traditional real estate transaction, and don't be surprised if it's hard to find a real estate agent who has successfully worked an owner financing deal from beginning to end. Now, by the time I did this for myself, I was more familiar with the process because as a listing agent, sometimes buyers will submit an offer asking for the seller to do owner financing. So I would see it from time to time. I was also trying to get into real estate investing on my own. So I was more familiar with it, but the way that it was taught, it was always about, finding a very motivated seller, and you kind of had to dance around asking for owner financing. In 2018, I did not have time to dance. I had to find an owner of a property who was willing and able to do owner financing, and the best place to find these are in the MLS. MLS stands for Multiple Listing Service, and that brings me to step 1, which is that you will need access to the MLS. That means you're going to need the help of a licensed real estate professional. Every MLS across the country is different. My MLS is RealTrack's MLS, and I absolutely love it because they give us the option of allowing our seller to have all of these different types of buyer financing, one of which is owner financing. Now, that means that I can go in and search for properties where the seller has said, hey, I'll do owner financing. And that's exactly how I found my property, which was being marketed as 4 acres. Hold on to that. Step 2, you must be willing to accept imperfection and live someplace where you swore you'd never live. When I bought the property, it was overgrown with vegetation. It was also in a place I swore I would never move to. I swore I would never move to Murfreesboro because I hated getting on I-24 East. Yet that was the only place that had the acreage and the property that I needed and was available through owner financing. Step number 3, don't negotiate price. I don't care what you saw on HGTV. I don't care what your cousin's husband, sister did, okay? Don't negotiate price. My property was on the market for 81 days, but I still gave the owner the price they asked for. The reason you don't negotiate price in an owner financing deal is because the owner is going to give you terms. The owner is acting as the bank and you are acting as the borrower. And remember, your debt to income ratio is too high. Your credit is probably jacked up. Okay, so you don't negotiate price. Step 4, you will negotiate terms, focusing on the monthly payment that you can afford and the amortization term. You want to negotiate a 30-year amortization term, and that will automatically give you the interest rate, and you may even have some prepayment penalty discussion. Now, I found out a couple of things. Number 1, how much the seller was looking for every single month. Number 2, how much I was going to be able to afford. And then from there, I negotiated a 30-year amortization and backed in to the interest rate. I also signed off on a prepayment penalty. A prepayment penalty is not necessarily a bad thing. It actually worked out good for me, and it was nothing but a sign from God that this was my house. In a prepayment penalty, what you're saying is that if you pay off the principal balance before a certain period of time, that you will have a fee in addition to paying it off. So in my case, I said, okay, I won't pay off this loan for 8 years. If I do, then I'll have to pay a prepayment penalty. So I wasn't trying to go to the bank. Step number 5 is to do your due diligence, home inspection or appraisal or whatever else you want. Don't make this complicated. Like, I didn't get a home inspection. I didn't get an appraisal. Why am I spending this extra money? I could care less. At the time, I had plenty of cash from the sale of my home. And with owner financing, you can close it just as soon as the title work is done. So I'm not really trying to make this more difficult than it needs to be. But if you're not in real estate and this is all new to you, at least get a home inspection. We got to go back up to step 4 for just a second because I forgot to talk about down payment. At the beginning of this, I told you that this was not a no money down situation. However, there are plenty of examples where investors have gone and done owner financing on a handshake or $1 down or $10 or $20. Yes, that is possible. However, it's my opinion that you need to have some cash somewhere when you're trying to buy a house. And the number that I think that you need to have is 10,000. Okay. That's what you're going to always hear from me. You really need more, but I'm just going to put 10,000 out there. Now, where are you going to get this money? Your 401k, a gift, somewhere. You're going to save it, tax income refund. I don't know, but you need, if you're trying to buy a house, at least $10,000 put up somewhere. Now, did the seller ask me for a down payment in this negotiation? No, I offered it, which brings me to my next step. Step 6 is to make the seller comfy cozy. This is my HUD settlement statement. Notice that settlement date. Remember, day after my birthday, day I was supposed to be getting foreclosed on. The first way I made the seller comfy cozy was by giving the seller the price they asked for. The second thing I did was I made 1 year of monthly payments up front in addition to offering a $10,000 down payment. In my situation, I wanted to make sure when the seller was reviewing my offer, it was going to be very hard to refuse. Now, if you know that the seller maybe has some things going on and they don't really have the negotiating power, then okay, be a little bit more aggressive. However, I didn't want to take that chance. So you have to be really good at knowing where the power lies in the negotiations. Step 7 is get a closing attorney and get your name on the deed. Back up at step 4, when you were doing the negotiation of terms, after that's all agreed upon and everybody signed off, you're going to give over what's called an earnest money deposit. Now, that can be any amount that you want, but the more that you give, the more serious the owner of the property is going to take you. I like $1,000. That's what I did. Next, you want to give that whole contract over to a real estate attorney, and they're going to do what's called a title search to make sure that there's no issues with ownership on the property. Owner financing is where your name goes on the actual deed. So this is not a land contract. This is not a lease purchase. This is not a lease with an option to buy. This is not a rent to own. This is none of that. This is owner financing. Your name is going on the deed. Just like it would if you had used a bank to buy the house. The same day you close on this property, I want you to do step 8, which is get a farm number from the Farm Services Agency. Remember when I told y'all that the property I was buying was being marketed as 4 acres? Well, when I got my farm tract number from Farm Services, I got a nice little surprise. I was sitting on 5.27 acres. Step 9, sell $1,000 worth of agricultural products. I took a break for a year after I bought the house, and then my father passed away April of 2020. So it took me to November of 2020 to get my $1,000 in agricultural sales. Step 10 is you want to apply with NRCS for a high tunnel so that you can grow food for your family for an extended season. By March of 2021, I had started my application with NRCS. By the spring of 2022, I had a 30 by 96 high tunnel on my property. And that is how you buy a farm or a homestead when you have high debt to income ratio or a bad credit, or if you make too much income to qualify for some of the other home buyer programs. If you're a buyer who needs help finding a broker in your area who is willing to get you a list of owner finance properties, or a property owner who needs help finding and screening buyers for owner financing, or if you're an agent who wants to build a pipeline of people who need help owner financing, click the link in my bio. I'd be happy to help.